Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome back to class. Today I want us to discuss on the Battle of Uhud. Battle of Uhud. Remember, the very first battle was Battle of Badr, and now we are going to discuss on the Battle of Uhud. During the Battle of Badr, the Quraysh were defeated, the Muslims won. Now, what causes the Battle of Uhud? The defeat of the Quraysh is what made the Quraysh to want to revenge back to the Muslims. So, let us first of all know the meaning of the word Uhud. When I talk of the Battle of Uhud, Uhud means what? Uhud, this one is a mountain in Medina. So, this one it means a mountain in Medina. When I talk of a mountain in Medina, that one means this battle that is called Battle of Uhud took place on that mountain in Medina, hence was called the Battle of Uhud. It was the second battle to be fought in Islam. It was the second battle to be fought in Islam. So, my dear learners, which battle was the first one to be fought in Islam? Yes, that was the Battle of Badr. The Battle of Badr was the first one to be fought in the history of Islam. When the Quraysh were defeated, they wanted to revenge. Because they wanted to revenge, it caused also the Muslims now to prepare for another war. And that one was now the second war in Islam, the Battle of Uhud. So we can just give a brief background about the Battle of Uhud. It was the second battle. It was the second battle to be fought in Islam, having known that the Battle of Badr was the first battle. So you can also say it took place in the 3rd year after Hijrah. It took place in, that is the 3rd year after Hijrah. When I write AH, that is year after Hijrah, the 3rd year after Hijrah. So that is the Battle of Uhud. It took place in the 3rd year after Hijrah. Uhud means mountain in Medina. Now let us see, why did the Muslim have to go for the second battle? That is the Battle of Badr. Hence, that one is causes of the Battle of Badr. Causes of the Battle of, not Badr but Uhud. Causes of the Battle of Uhud. Why did the Muslims had to go and fight on top of Mount Uhud? Reasons for the Battle of Uhud. My dear learners, just look at what happened during the Battle of Badr. What can you think causes the Battle of Uhud? After the victory of the Muslims, what led into another second battle? Yes, my dear learners, let us discuss. Let us just be open up. Let us think on what might have causes the second battle, the Battle of Uhud. Now, what causes the Battle of Uhud? After the defeats of the Quraysh, these Quraysh, they were not happy. So they wanted to revenge the defeat. They wanted to revenge back the defeat. They wanted to fight the Muslims again. And again, apart from them wanted to revenge, we know that one of their leaders was killed. One of their commander was killed. That is Abu Jahl was killed. Apart from Abu Jahl, also noble soldiers from their side were also killed. So the Quraysh wanted to revenge also for the death of their leaders that were killed during the Battle of Badr. They wanted to revenge for the death of their leaders. Another reason that might have caused the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims attacked the trade caravan that was heading to Syria. So the Quraysh were afraid that the trade caravan will be attacked. They will not be able to trade anymore. That also might have caused them to involve into another fight. And then we can also say that, my dear learners, they were wanted to gain back their supremacy among the Arabs. The Quraysh wanted to gain back their supremacy among the Arabs. So let us just note down one by one so that you can have them in your books or you can have them in your brain. Causes of the Battle of Badr. The first one that I said, Quraysh wanted to revenge about the defeat. They wanted to revenge on the defeat or during the Battle of Badr. So you can say the Quraysh wanted to revenge the defeat of Battle of Badr. They were not happy with that one, so they wanted to revenge. The second reason for the Battle of Uhud was the Quraysh wanted to bring an end to Islam. We can also add that the Quraysh wanted to bring Islam to an end. They believed that when the Muslims, after the Muslims have won, then they felt that Islam was going to spread very fast and their idol worshipping was going to stop. So they still insisted, or they still had that mentality of stopping the spread of Islam. Another reason for the Battle of Uhud, the Quraysh wanted to establish a safety route for the trade caravan. Being that they knew that the Muslims would attack their trade caravan each and every time they were to travel to Syria, they wanted to establish a safety rule for their trade caravan so that they can continue traveling to Syria safely and continue with their trade. So the Quraysh wanted to establish safety for their trade, caravan to Syria, for their trade caravan to Syria. And another cause that we can also say led to the Battle of Uhud, they wanted to gain back their supremacy among the Arabs. The Quraysh wanted to gain back their supremacy among the Arabs. They wanted to gain back their supremacy among Arabs. And the last reason that we can say led to the Battle of Uhud, my dear learners, they wanted to revenge for the death of their leaders. They wanted to revenge for the death of, they wanted to revenge for the death of their leaders. Being that almost 70 soldiers were killed, including their commander-in-chief, Abu Jahl. So they wanted to revenge. They still had that bitterness in their hearts. They were not comfortable. So, my dear learners, these are some of the causes that led to the Battle of Badr. I want you to go through them, understand them. Make sure you understand each and every point. And let's continue. Let us now see on the events that took place during the Battle of Badr, during the Battle of Uhud. what happened now during the battle itself. After we have seen the reasons that led to the Battle of Badr, let us now see how the Battle of Badr happened, what transpired in the battle, how did it go. Now, my dear learners, let us discuss on the events of the Battle of Uhud, having told you the meaning of the Uhud and what are some of the reasons that led to the Battle of Uhud. I want you to just sit down, my dear learners, and listen to the story I'm going to read for you on what transpired during the Battle of Uhud, what happened. After which, we are now going to take our notes. Just listen keenly on the events of what happened in the Battle of Badr. So, the following are the events of the Battle of Badr. Events of the Battle of Uhud. I'm sorry, my dear learners. I've just thought of Battle of Badr, so it's a bit challenging. It is Battle of Uhud. So the following are the events of the Battle of Uhud. The Battle of Uhud was the second battle to be fought in the history of Islam. That is what I've just taught you. And it took place in the 3rd year after Hijrah. I've given out the reasons why the Quraysh wanted, the reasons for the Battle of Badr. The Quraysh wanted to revenge for their defeat during the Battle of Badr. So, Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, who was still living in Makkah, informed Prophet Muhammad that the Quraysh of Makkah were planning to attack Medina. Remember, the Muslims were now in Medina. So Abbas was the uncle of the Prophet. He informed the Prophet that the Quraysh wanted to attack Medina. In the 3rd year after Hijrah, a huge army of 3,000 men from the Quraysh of Makkah proceeded to Medina with the intention of attacking Muslims. Remember, the army was 3,000. When the Prophet heard of the news, he marched with an army of 1,000 people. So the Quraysh were 3,000, but Prophet Muhammad marched with an army of 1,000 people to Uhud. Remember, I said Uhud is a mountain in Medina. So, that is in Uhud, that is where now the Quraysh were camping. However, on their way to Uhud, that is on the way, Prophet Muhammad and the army on their way to Uhud, Abdullah bin Ubay, the leader of the hypocrites, withdrew from the Muslims' army. The Muslims' army was 1,000. Now, Abdullah withdrew with 300 hypocrites. These 300 hypocrites meaning those people who just joined the group, but they were pretending. They were not serious that they were going to fight. So on their way, Abdullah bin Ubay, we are being told that, withdrew from the Muslim army with 300 hypocrites, leaving Muslim army with only 700 men. Remember, they were 1,000. So when 300 left, they were remaining 700. When Prophet Muhammad arrived at Uhud, he realized that there was a small passage between the two mountains. He ordered 50 archers to protect the passage and not to leave the passage at any cost. That one means now the Quraysh were having 3,000 soldiers, but the Muslims were now having only 700 soldiers, 300 having left. So, Prophet Muhammad, before the battle, we have been told that Prophet Muhammad organized 50 archers to stay on top of Mount Uhud. And he ordered them not to leave their position under any circumstance. They were to remain there. The fight began with a duel, as always, and then we have been told that between Ali and Talha, Ali was from the Muslim side and Talha was the Quraysh side. They are the first people to start the duel. Ali killed Talha, and the Muslims' army fought with so much courage that the Quraysh started retreating, meaning the Quraysh started flying away. They were running away. So, we are being told that some Muslims on the field and some actors were protecting the passage between the two mountains. So that battle was now when the battle continues. But because they were fighting fiercely and the Muslims were now fighting the Quraysh became afraid and started to run away. When they started running away, the Muslims got excited with the early win and left their position. Remember, they were the 50 archers that were told to remain on top of the mountain, that were not to come, they were not to live on top of the mountain under any circumstances. When they saw the Quraysh who were running away, they thought that now they have won. Then they decided now to live on top of the mountain and to run down the mountain to go and claim or to go and pick some of the items that the Quraysh that were running away had left behind. So when the Quraysh saw that the Muslims had left on top of the Mount Uhud, this made the Quraysh to reorganize themselves so that they could attack the Muslims by surprise. The ones who had run away, but the ones who were left after seeing the Muslims coming from the mountain where they were, they decided to take the positions of the Muslims. So the Muslims that ran down to pick the items that the Quraysh had left behind, they got attracted with the wealth that the Quraysh left behind. So they came down of the mountain to go and pick the items. Yet the other Quraysh who were still hiding around the mountains went back and took their position. So we are being told that when the Quraysh saw the unprotected passage in the mountain that came through it with a group of soldiers, killed the remaining archers. The Quraysh now went on top of the mountain, killed the remaining Muslims archers that were there on the mountain, and were now attacking the Muslims from behind. Remember, they were attacking them suddenly by surprise. They didn't know. And then we are being told that after they were now attacking the Muslims from behind, the fleeing army of the Quraysh, the ones that were running away, also came back to the battlefield. The Quraysh that were running away also came back to the battlefield. The Muslims were now surrounded by the Quraysh from both sides. Remember, the Quraysh were now the ones on top of Mount Uhud. And the Muslims, remember, some of them had run to collect the wealth that the Quraysh were leaving behind. As a result, Muslims were killed, the Prophet was also injured, and Hamza, the Prophet's uncle, was killed. Hamza, the Prophet's uncle, was killed. The Muslims lost the battle because the archers disobeyed the Prophet's order. The Prophet ordered them that they were not to live on top of Mount Uhud under any circumstance, be it during the time of victory or when they were losing, they were not to live. But when the archers saw that the Quraysh, they were winning, the Quraysh were now running away, they were now running to take the items that the Quraysh had left behind. And that one cost them a lot. The Muslims suffered heavily. The Prophet was injured, Hamza was killed, and then 70 other soldiers from Muslim sides were also killed. The 70 soldiers were also killed, among them being Hamza, the Prophet's uncle. So, in the Battle of Uhud, 70 Muslims lost their lives, but only 22 Quraysh were killed during the Battle of Badr. My dear learners, those are the events, and that is how the battle took place. That is how the Muslims fought. They disobeyed the Prophet. They started winning. When they saw that victory, they got attracted with the small wealth the Quraysh were running and leaving behind. They ran behind to go and collect whatever the Quraysh had left behind, only for the Quraysh to reorganize themselves and come take the positions of the Muslim on top of Mount Uhud, killed the few archers that were left on top of Mount Uhud, and now they took the position of the Muslims on top of Mount Uhud, and they were able now to attack the Muslim from both sides. This one made the Muslims to be defeated. And they were defeated because they did not obey the order of the Prophet. The Prophet told the archers, that the 50 archers that were placed on top of Mount Uhud, that they were not to leave their position under any circumstance. But because they left, and that one cost them heavily. He made the Prophet was badly injured. 70 Muslims were killed, including Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet. But during the battle, only 22 Quraysh people were killed. Until there, my dear learners, I want you to listen to that story again, absorb it, then we will come to discuss it one by one. Bye-bye, learners.